Okay, so strap in, everyone, because today we are diving headfirst into Captain America, Civil War.
Oh, Civil War.
Yeah, 2016, right?
Uh,
That was the one that honestly felt less like a typical Captain America sequel and more like, a full-blown Avengers-level event.
oh, absolutely. It was huge.
It really was, yeah.
And we've got a mountain of material to dig through.
No.
Seriously, I mean, we've got everything from IMDb, and I'm talking the full works here, cast and crew lists that could wrap around the block, technical specs that'll make your head spin, all those juicy behind-the-scenes nuggets.
Love those.
Right. Then we've got a whole spectrum of user reviews to see what landed with audiences, plus some good background info to keep us on track.
Awesome.
Yeah, so the goal here, right, to understand why Civil War hit the MCU like a freaking earthquake.
Exactly. It's about getting to the heart of what made this film tick, what resonated so powerfully with viewers.
And for me, it all comes back to the Avengers, the core team basically imploding.
The world suddenly realizing, hey, these guys are insanely powerful, but maybe there should be some ground rules here.
Well, and the consequences, right. They're not always pretty.
Nope. And that's where the Sokovia Accords come in. Boom. This single document basically cleaves the team in two, and you've got Captain America and Iron Man, the supposed leaders, suddenly staring each other down from opposite sides.
Yeah, a serious clash of ideologies.
Oh, big time. But it wasn't just the familiar faces duking it out. Civil War also threw Black Panther and Spider-Man into the mix. Talk about instant fan favorites.
Oh my gosh, yes, they stole every scene they were in.
Totally. It's wild to think how massive this film was. I mean, box office-wise, it was the third biggest hit of 2016, and it really felt like Avengers 2.5, pulling in almost every hero under the sun.
Definitely not your average solo superhero outing.
Right. So let's break this down. What actually triggers this whole superhero meltdown? I mean, it can't just be theoretical policy debates, right? There's got to be a spark.
Oh, yeah. There's a definite catalyst, a tragic incident in Lagos involving Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch.
Right. She's still figuring out her powers.
Exactly. And during a mission, there's some collateral damage, some unintended civilian casualties, and, that becomes a major turning point.
Yeah, the world saying enough is enough.
Basically. The international community, led by the UN, steps in and says, look, we need some kind of framework here, some oversight, and that's where the Sokovia Accords come from. It really makes you think about those tricky, real-world questions, right? Like intervention, accountability, all that.
Big time. And on one side of this divide, we've got Captain America, Steve Rogers. Why is he so resistant to this idea of a governing body calling the shots?
Well, based on some of the user reviews I saw, it seems like Steve's got this deep-seated distrust of government control.
I mean, he's seen some stuff, right?
Yeah, firsthand. He knows how easily even those supposedly good institutions can be corrupted, and he's worried about the Avengers becoming a political tool, basically.
That makes sense.
But it goes deeper than that. There's a really personal reason driving his opposition.
His loyalty to Bucky Barnes, right?
Exactly, the Winter Soldier. Bucky gets framed for that bombing in Vienna, the one that kills King T'Chaka of Wakanda, and Steve is absolutely certain of his friend's innocence.
So he's not just fighting for an ideal, he's fighting for his friend.
Exactly. It's about loyalty, trust, all those deeply personal ties.
Now, on the other side, you've got Tony Stark. And it's actually kind of surprising to see him advocating for government regulation.
Right, because he's always been the independent, do-it-my-way kind of guy.
Totally. So what's behind his change of heart?
I think for Tony, it's about the weight of the past, He's haunted by the destruction that the Avengers have caused, even unintentionally, and he's trying to find a way to prevent that from happening again.
Yeah, he feels responsible.
He does, and he's convinced that some kind of oversight, even if it means giving up some autonomy, is the only way to keep the world safe. Lots of the user reviews picked up on that, that sense of him grappling with this huge responsibility.
Yeah, it's a complex arc for him.
It is, for sure.
And what I love about Civil War is how well it presents both sides.
Right. It's not black and white at all.
Nope. You really understand where both Steve and Tony are coming from. Even some of the reviewers were saying, like, man, if these guys had just sat down and talked it out, maybe the whole conflict could have been avoided. Like miscommunication leading to all-out war.
Classic.
Totally. But let's talk about the people caught in the middle of all this, starting with Bucky. I mean, he's the one that really throws a wrench in the works, right?
Oh, yeah, Bucky Barnes. He's the human time bomb at the heart of everything.
And he's being hunted by everyone.
By everyone. And, there was this one user review that pointed out how Sebastian Stan actually speaks Romanian in the film.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, as a way to give his characters past this extra layer of authenticity.
That's cool.
Right, it shows how much attention to detail went into this.
Makes you realize it's not just explosions and CGI.
Not at all. And Bucky's situation, being framed, being manipulated, it really forces Steve to question everything, to go up against the system, even against his closest allies. Like,
Wow.
what are the limits of loyalty? How far would you go for someone you trust?
Heavy stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And then you've got T'Challa entering the scene, and man, he is driven.
Black Panther. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's consumed by this need for vengeance for his father's death. He believes Bucky is responsible, and he's not going to rest until he gets justice.
And the reviewers loved Chadwick Boseman's performance.
They raved about it. They said he brought this incredible regal presence to the role, this real sense of gravitas.
He owned it.
He did. It wasn't just a new character. It was like, whoa, this guy's a major player in the MCU,
And of course, we can't forget about the web slinger himself, Spider-Man.
Oh my God, yeah. Talk about a grand entrance.
He swings in and just steals the show.
Completely. Everyone was saying Tom Holland nailed it. Like, he IS Peter Parker.
Perfect casting.
Seriously. He brought this youthful energy, this humor that really lightened the mood.
Yeah, it's nice to have a little fun in the middle of a superhero showdown.
Definitely. But, lurking behind all this is Helmut Zemo. He's pulling strings, manipulating events, and he's not your typical villain.
Yeah, at all. He's not some power-hungry maniac trying to take over the world.
Nope. He's driven by revenge, but it's personal. He wants to tear the Avengers apart from the inside, and he does it with brains, not brawn.
Yeah, some reviewers found his plan a little too complicated.
Convoluted, yeah.
But I think they appreciated that he wasn't just another superpowered baddie, He felt real, his motivations were understandable, even if his methods were extreme.
Right. Like, how do you fight someone who's weaponizing your own past against you?
Creepy.
Totally. And it wasn't just Cap and Iron Man in this fight, right? We had pretty much the whole roster of heroes taking sides.
Oh, yeah, it was a full-on superhero draft. Okay, so on Team Cap, we've got Bucky, obviously, Falcon, always there to back him up, Scarlet Witch, bringing the firepower, Hawkeye, keeping it grounded, and Ant-Man, who, packs a surprisingly big punch when he needs to.
And on Team Iron Man, you've got Black Panther, all sleek and agile, Spider-Man swinging into action, Black Widow playing it smart and strategic, War Machine, loyal as ever, and Vision, who's basically a walking, talking supercomputer.
Yeah, it's like, how do you even choose a side?
Right. It's a testament to the writing that both teams have such compelling arguments, and you see the internal conflicts within each group as well.
Totally. So let's walk through some of the major plot points that fuel this whole thing. It all kicks off with that bombing in Vienna, right?
Yeah, that's the inciting incident. Security footage seemingly points to Bucky, and suddenly he's public enemy #1.
And T'Challa's on his trail.
Oh yeah, full vengeance mode activated. They eventually catch Bucky along with Cap and Falcon, who are trying to protect him, and things just escalate from there.
But the real turning point happens at that facility where they're holding Bucky.
Oh man, that scene was intense.
Zemo gets in, right?
Yeah.
And he uses those trigger words to reactivate Bucky's Winter Soldier programming.
It's brutal. You see how Bucky is basically a weapon, completely stripped of his free will, and Zemo uses him to cause chaos and sow distrust among the Avengers.
This is messed up.
It is. And, it raises these bigger questions about the ethics of mind control, the long-lasting trauma it can inflict.
Yeah, heavy stuff. And that's what pushes Cap over the edge, right?
Yeah, he realizes he can't trust the authorities to handle this situation, so he and Falcon go rogue, basically.
And start assembling their own team.
Exactly. They need to stop Zemo and protect Bucky before it's too late. And of course, Secretary Ross isn't having any of that, so he gives Tony the green light to assemble his own team and bring them in.
Cue the epic airport battle.
Oh, yeah, that was a showstopper, like visually stunning. The choreography was amazing, and you had these awesome little moments between the characters, especially the ones who were meeting for the first time.
One of the reviewers even mentioned it was like 17 minutes long in IMAX.
17 minutes, wow.
Yeah. I mean, talk about going all out.
Seriously, it was a masterclass in superhero action, and it perfectly balanced those big bombastic moments with these smaller, character-driven interactions.
And then there's Black Widow, who kind of throws everyone a curveball.
Right. Even though she's on Tony's side, she ends up letting Cap and Bucky escape.
And it's because of her history with them, right?
Yeah.
And maybe some doubts about whether she's on the right side of this whole thing.
Exactly. It shows how personal loyalties and beliefs can sometimes override official allegiances. It's a complex decision, and it forces her to go into hiding afterward.
Yeah, she's got to deal with the consequences.
Definitely. And the rest of Cap's team isn't so lucky. They get captured and imprisoned in the Raft, that underwater supermax prison.
And we can't forget about what happens to War Machine.
Oh, man, that was heartbreaking. He gets accidentally hit by Vision during the airport battle and ends up partially paralyzed.
He's lucky to be alive.
He is, and it's a stark reminder that even when heroes are fighting each other, there can be these unintended tragic consequences.
Yeah, no one walks away from this unscathed.
Nope. But the real emotional punch comes when Zemo's true plan is revealed.
It wasn't just about framing Bucky, was it?
No, that was just the first step. He wanted to tear the Avengers apart from the inside, and he does it by showing Tony footage of Bucky killing his parents.
Brutal.
Totally. It turns out that car accident Tony always believed in, staged. And Bucky, under Hydra's control, was the one who did it.
And Steve knew, didn't he?
Yeah, he found out earlier but didn't tell Tony. And that's what really destroys their relationship. It's a betrayal on a deeply personal level, much more painful than any physical fight.
So everything comes to a head in Siberia.
Yeah, that final confrontation is devastating. Tony finds out the truth and it just breaks him. He, Cap, and Bucky end up in this brutal, no-holds-barred fight.
You can feel the raw emotion in that scene.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just about ideology anymore. It's about grief, betrayal, years of built-up tension just exploding.
And in the end, Cap makes a powerful statement by leaving his shield behind.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, I'm done with this. I can't be Captain America in a world where trust and friendship are shattered.
So what happens in the aftermath of all this?
Well, Rhodes starts his long road to recovery. Cap breaks his team out of the Raft because he's not going to leave his friends behind. Bucky ends up in Wakanda, where T'Challa offers him asylum, and they put him in cryogenic sleep while they try to figure out how to undo the brainwashing.
And what about Tony?
He gets a letter from Steve. It's not an apology exactly, but it's a start, a glimmer of hope that maybe someday they can rebuild what they've lost.
So it's not a happy ending, but it's not hopeless either.
Exactly. It's messy, complicated, just like real life, and it leaves you with a lot to think about.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little and talk about the people who brought this whole story to life.
Okay.
We've got the Russo brothers directing and Marcus and McFeely on the screenplay.
Right. A dream team.
Seriously. And they were coming off The Winter Soldier, which was already a huge success. So they knew this world. They knew these characters.
They had a vision.
They did. And they're not just talented, they're decorated. I mean, they've got Emmy Awards to their names.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they're not messing around.
Clearly not. And, you can't talk about Civil War without talking about the sheer scale of this production.
Massive.
Absolutely. A budget of $250 million, a global box office haul of over $1.15 billion. I mean, those numbers speak for themselves.
They do. And it's a long movie too, right? Like 2.5 hours?
2 hours and 27 minutes to be exact.
Wow. They really packed it in.
They did, and not just with story. I mean, even the technical aspects are impressive. The sound design, for example.
Oh, yeah, all those Dolby formats, Atmos, digital, surround 7.1.
They really went all out to create this immersive audio experience.
You can really feel the impact of every punch, every explosion.
Exactly. And then there's the visual effects. I was just looking at the IMDb page, and the list of VFX studios involved is insane.
It's a global effort.
It is. And one of the user reviews I read specifically mentioned the de-aging CGI, how seamlessly they made certain actors look younger in flashbacks.
That's some serious technical wizardry.
It is. But, amidst all the epic battles and the CGI spectacle, Civil War also has those little details, those Easter eggs that fans love.
Oh, yeah, the trivia and the cameos.
Right, like Alfred Woodard, who plays Miriam Sharp, that grieving mother who confronts Tony. Did you know Robert Downey Jr. actually suggested her for the role?
No way.
Yeah, even before her casting in Luke Cage was announced.
Wow, he's got a good eye for talent.
He does. And then there's Jim Rash, who plays that MIT liaison. He'd worked with the Russos on Community before.
Oh, that's right. I love that show.
Me too. It's those little connections that make the MCU so fun.
Totally. And of course, no MCU film is complete without a Stan Lee cameo.
Of course not. This time he's a FedEx delivery guy for Tony Stark, which is a funny little nod to his mailman cameo in Fantastic Four.
I love it.
Yeah, those cameos are always a treat. But, okay, let's wrap this up by talking about how audiences reacted to Civil War and the big themes that resonated.
So, overall, the reviews were super positive.
Overwhelmingly positive, yeah. People loved the story, the characters, the action. Lots of comparisons to The Winter Soldier, which is high praise.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And what were some of the themes that people kept coming back to?
Well, the consequences of superhero actions, for one.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It is. And the whole question of government oversight versus individual freedom, that was huge. But also the burden of responsibility, the complexities of friendship and loyalty, the devastating impact of betrayal, civil war really dives into those themes in a mature way.
Yeah, it's not just a mindless action flick.
No, it's got some real depth to it.
Yeah.
Now, there were some criticisms, of course. Some people felt like the movie was a little overstuffed with characters.
Yeah, there are a lot of them.
There are. And some people found Zemo's plan a little too convoluted.
But overall, people loved it.
They did. And it's interesting, a lot of reviewers compared it to Batman v Superman, which came out the same year.
Yeah.
Most people felt like Civil War handled the superhero conflict much better, both in terms of the action and the emotional stakes.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and everyone agreed that the introductions of Black Panther and Spider-Man were home runs.
They really were. They added so much to the MCU.
They did. And a lot of the reviews highlighted the emotional core of the film, especially the way it explored the relationship between Captain America and Iron Man.
Yeah, that's what makes it so powerful, right? It's not just about punching bad guys. It's about these personal conflicts, these broken friendships.
Exactly. One reviewer even joked that the movie should be called Captain America Stalemate because no one really wins in the end.
That's funny.
It is. But it also highlights the point that this isn't a typical superhero story with a clear-cut good guy and bad guy. It's more nuanced than that.
Yeah, it's about the gray areas.
Exactly. And you know, even though it's technically a Captain America movie, it really feels like an Avengers-level event.
Oh, absolutely. The scope, the stakes, the number of characters involved, it's huge.
It is. And speaking of huge, let's not forget about those post-credit scenes.
Oh, yeah, the MCU wouldn't be the MCU without them.
Right. And one of the user reviews I read had this funny comment about how we all just sit there patiently through the endless credits just for those little extra bits.
We're all suckers for them.
We are. But, okay, let's bring this deep dive to a close. Captain America. Civil War wasn't just another superhero blockbuster. It was a game changer.
It fractured the Avengers, changed the landscape of the MCU, and left us all with a lot to think about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It forced us to confront these complex questions about power, responsibility, the consequences of our actions, and the limits of loyalty.
Yeah, and it did it in a way that was both thrilling and thought-provoking.
Absolutely. And you know, what really struck me is how the film refused to offer easy answers. It showed how even heroes with the best intentions can end up on opposite sides, how good people can make mistakes, how even the strongest friendships can be tested.
Yeah, that's what makes it so relatable, right? We've all faced those kinds of dilemmas in our own lives. Maybe not on a superhero scale, but still.
Exactly. And so we leave you, our listener, with this question. How do you think the events of Civil War ultimately shaped the future of the MCU? What were the long-term consequences of this conflict? How did it affect the individual journeys of these characters?
It's a lot to chew on.
It is, and it's a question that continues to resonate throughout the MCU even today.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Captain America: Civil War.
It's been a blast.
Until next time.
See